if I go to my left.
Thank you. Good evening, David Walker, Area Coordinator for West Craven Area Committee.
Hi, Neil Watson, Planning Officer.
Chris Church, Councillor, Barnoldswick Ward.
Mick Strickland, Councillor for Barnoldswick.
Susan Land, Councillor, Evian Courts.
Callum Hurd, Councillor, Barnoldswick Town Council.
Tom Witt, I'm a councillor for Barnoldswick Ward.
And moving over to the end.
Jemima Hill, I'm a PC on the Pendle neighbourhood team.
I'm PC Matt Lunnett, I'm also a member of the neighbourhood team at Pendle.
Well, Sharon Ashley, and I'm new to the Parish Council at Kelbrook and Slough.
Thank you.
Joanne Eccles, a Committee Administrator at Pendle Council.
Thank you. For completeness, if anybody is watching this on online, we do have 2 members of the press and 2 members of public here as well. Joanne, could I ask, do we have any apologies, please?
Councillor Rosemary Carroll and Amanda Inman.
Okay. Amanda is the representative from Ely Town Council. Item 1, we don't have any residents wanting to speak tonight. Item 1 is declaration of interest, and this is where councillors have to declare any pecuniary interest that they might have, which are prejudicial. We've got to kick them out. They can't take part in the meeting. So, does any councillor have any prejudicial pecuniary interest? No. Item 2 is public question time. We do have 2 residents here. There is an opportunity if you want to ask any questions of matters that aren't on the agenda. You're welcome to do so. No. Thank you very much. Item 3 is the minutes of the last meeting. Will somebody move those as correct record? Thanks, Susan, Chris. Do you have a special copy for me to sign? Thank you very much. I won't doodle on that. There we go. Thank you. It isn't really a special copy, it's just like everybody else's copy, but it's got a... Oh, we've all got a little chairman on the back. Yeah. Right. Item 4 is police and community safety issues. And we've got Matt and Jemima in attendance. Who's going to lead off on this?
Chair, I think that was Matt.
Very good.
I've been briefed by the Area Sergeant, as you know, James Cooper, who's taken me through the figures. The picture overall is very, very good actually. So all crime is down minus 25, or down 25 from this time last year. There will be questions and concerns, I would have thought, at the first item, which is residential burglary, which are very unusual these days, and that's up 3 to 5, whereas last year we had 2. You'll be aware, probably due to Facebook, our own publicity and concerned residents, comments about they call them hannah units, where properties have been broken into and vehicles stolen. What I can tell you is they are being investigated by our rural task force. And they've put measures into place to capture any further and investigate the burglaries that have happened there. And they're happening right now, but you won't see what's happening if you get my meaning. So they are of concern to everybody, probably around the table, and in West Craven, very concerning. The burglary commercial, you'll see, is at 1. Now, we're aware the Majestic buildings was burgled. You probably understand 2, it's been burgled twice. 1 was in May and then the other was just in June. So that's why you've only got 1. That explains that. And again, that's being looked at. CCTV inquiries are being looked at in relation to that, I do believe. Vehicle crime, everywhere else it's up, apart from West Craven, there is down -5, which is obviously very, very pleasing. Hate crime is 0, assaults down 2, thefts are down 11. I can tell you why that's the case, I shall tell you in a minute. Criminal damage, that's down 9, which is really pleasing. And for me and Jemima, of particular interest is antisocial behaviour, that's down 22. So that's really positive. For Barnoldswick, it can be high, can be, so we're really pleased. Your thefts are down because the person that was coming to Barnoldswick from Colne and doing what she was doing has been arrested and dealt with, so she's no longer active in Barnoldswick. We'll be looking to get a CBO on that person so she can't enter the area as well, so she doesn't come back when she's back.
Could just interrupt, am I correct in thinking that the terms of her bail are such that she's entitled to enter Barnoldswick?
Yeah, that's correct. So
yeah,
if she did, she would be breaching those bail conditions and should be arrested. So that protects us all in Barnoldswick, so that's really positive. But obviously, Jay, you do raise a point. I think we don't think now, I think later, so we need to make sure and safeguard that doesn't happen again. So that's something the CBM is looking to safeguard. So overall, it's a good story. Overall, crime is down 25, like I said, this time to last year. And for me, I'm really pleased that ASB is much less. Obviously, we're coming to summer where that figure can rise, so we'll be working hard to keep that figure into minds, but that's to be seen. But yeah, it's good as that. Are there any questions?
thank you very much.
Tom, first, a big thank you for Bands on the Square. It was an excellent police presence. I think
Tom, could I just interject? Are we talking about the policing
or the playing?
or the playing?
Why not both?
Sorry, we've got to stir it a bit.
No, I think it was a great event. Very thankful for you guys playing too. Yeah.
So I'm not right to say, Jay, the staffing of Bands on the Square was done very differently this year. It was done with the right staff and the people who were community engaging. And I can tell you from our point of view, there was 0 arrests, 0 fixed penalties issued, 0 crime. So that's amazing, because before we've had shopliftings and all sorts. Everybody pulled together from my point of view. So I went around all the off licences and they'd all put extra staff on. And I just think it was a big team effort. I think it worked really well. The public were really positive and engaged really well. And the police officers from over at the Ribble Valley were very, very pleased, and they'll be working it next year. They were well happy with it. So from a policing point of view, it was really nice, a really nice event, and from the other point of view, it was brilliant as well. But thank you. Yeah, I think we're kind of critical, and we have been, but I think credit's due, and it was a successful operation. To say no arrests and no, that's very unusual for a public order event like that. So I think you can really celebrate. Well, you should celebrate that actually.
Good, thank you. And for anybody that isn't aware, the references to playing is that Matt and Neil Walling, local PCSO, actually performed at Bank on the Square. So we're not having a dig. Well, it's a bit of a compliment.
So it's weird, isn't it? So I can say from a policing and professional point of view, and also
I'm not as a professional singer, man.
No, no. But I thought the whole weekend was great. Even before Monday, I thought it was. And so much that I would never text people, or even text you didn't to say. I thought it, we were all really pleased, and the Bobbies enjoyed it. When did you ever hear that?
Before we get too much into a backslapping fest, I think we do have a concern, not related to Bands on the Square, but and you alluded to the incidents in the St Mary's Avenue area, I think, earlier on, and there was an issue where somebody phoned the police, I think unfortunately got put through to North Yorkshire, and the police did eventually rock up, but it was like 2 hours after the event and they could have caught somebody. So I think the committee would have concern that there was a bit of a failure there, and I think that that's impacted on people's confidence in local policing. It's a bit of a up and down thing at the moment, because obviously the commercial breaks previously people were very concerned about that. So you know, perhaps if you could feed that back.
I've got something for
Sir Sergeant.
So I'm not going to defend that, and I think the figures that have been reported are true. Nobody's going to defend that. Nobody around this table or around my organisation's table. It's not good enough, and the inquiries have been going on as to why that happened. The team leader from the communications department is picking that up and going through the call, you know, listening back to the call to find out why that call taker did not deploy somebody. If I get anybody around this table and say what was said, you would all say that was a blue light, grade one, we don't know why that happened. So it's been looked at. So you're concerned, you should be, and we are as individuals and as an organisation, because that's nowhere near good enough for Barnoldswick. And I'm not going to defend it, Chair. It's not good enough, and as a result, your figures are +3. That's, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I do have a follow-up on that one. I've been contacted today about an elderly resident in that area who had an unwanted caller, quite weirdly demanding that he'd be allowed to buy his house. And I mean, we're talking about an elderly resident who was quite frightened, rang the police, and effectively was fobbed off by the comms people. And I mean, we know of cases where, you know, cold callers, and we're very close to an incident here, where, you know, cold callers have subsequently led to criminal activity. And I can feed, in fact, if I'm to run out of time, I was going to email the details through to either the inspector or the sergeant before we came out, but I'll do so after the meeting.
Please do, yeah.
I am concerned that there does not seem to be the right sort of attitude. I'm not saying from officers, but certainly when they're speaking to either 101 or in the first case 999.
Yeah. No, there's no defending, and I don't understand it. I wasn't there on the night, I didn't take the call, I didn't hear what was said, but if what's been reported, it's nowhere near good enough. So. And I hope there's a lot of learning from that, because it's not good enough.
Okay. Did you have something further to add to your report? You said you were going to come back to something, but you might have already covered it.
Yeah, I think it was about why the shopliftings have gone down, because of the nicotine.
Very good. Tom?
Yeah, just following up on the figures then, so antisocial behaviour down 22. I mean, is there a particular reason you think that is?
There was an issue on West Close Road, and that issue appears to have gone away, which has dramatically reduced ASB logs. That was, and I think that is the reason, to be quite honest, Tommy. Yeah. That one issue was a bit of a thorn in the side, and that's gone now, so that's really positive.
I mean, the figures are compared to 12 months ago, aren't they? So we're looking at a 12-month comparison rather than compared with last month.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. Any further comments or questions? The second part of this item is about the community safety issue, so it's not necessarily giving the police a interrogation, but about areas where we're concerned that there is antisocial behaviour or other activities that could impact on community safety, and not to belabor the point where it could be, fire safety, anything really that is in that gambit. So if there's nothing of at the moment, that's fine. But if you bear in mind, I'm really addressing new councillors so that we're scaling them up on what sort of issues
road
come around.
safety come under that banner.
Road safety is a good one.
Massive issue at
Yeah.
Calbrook.
Sharon, let me bring you in
Yeah.
a moment because Susan did indicate, so
Yeah.
I'll bring you in afterwards. Yeah.
I just noticed we're getting fires lit again in Barnoldswick at TB.
Off at school lane.
Yeah,
Off school lane.
yeah. Yeah, they're pulling the branches down and setting a fire again.
That's good. Thank you for that, Susan. I'll feed that back. And they can put that on the patrol plan, which means that they get out of the car and they patrol around every night.
Yeah.
One of us. In fact, we'll do that tonight, will we?
Okay, that's good. I'm not sure you get much of a car around because you haven't really got good access, have you?
No, it's not good on school night.
No.
It's a walk round.
Parking.
Yeah, yeah. Sharon.
Sorry, yeah, that came up at our public meeting, people, massive concern about road safety, the road going between Elbrook School through into South. In the last few weeks there's been 3 accidents on there with cars. We've got witnesses of cars overtaking each other round the bollards on the other side of the road. Lots of people are sort of reporting in for, because you can do the speed surveys, can't they, on requesting those, but nothing seems to be happening moving forward. And it's coming up frequently where, on the public participation sessions that it's a major concern, the speed that cars are travelling along there.
What I can get is I'll personally organise this. I can organise a community road watch to gather that evidence. And that's just literally an email I'll send out. I'll address that straight away.
On a wider issue on the topic of road safety, and it won't come as a surprise to councillors who've been on for a bit, but almost every meeting we raise speeding traffic on one road or another road. Sharon's referred to the A56 at Calbrook. Were there somebody here from Salterforth, they would be referring to the crossroads and people overtaking on the wrong side of the bollards, and that happened to me very recently, within the last 4 weeks.
I've had that as well.
Yeah, so it's a general concern. What we've asked for as a committee, and putting my community safety hat on, asked for from the Community Safety Partnership, is for more average speed cameras to be deployed. And I'm not talking about the van or a fixed camera. I'm talking about, well, they are fixed cameras, but I'm talking about the sort of thing we've got on the A682 from Blackall, from Barrowford, Highford, over to Gisborne, and that seems to have been quite effective in suppressing the speed of vehicles and improving road safety. If you look at the sort of the casualty figures before and after, it's chalk and cheese. It really is having that impact. So we asked previously if the Road Safety Partnership could implement those average speed cameras from the county boundary by the punch bowl through to Langroyd, and to actually control the traffic. Because if you ask anybody along the A56, in Folridge, in Calbrook, in Earby, it's the same issue that comes up regularly. So whether we can actually achieve that or not, but if the parish council could put its shoulder to that wheel and ask, I mean, it is a big ask, and the likelihood of us getting it is maybe remote, but the more that we can do to put pressure on, the better, really. And in the meantime, I think we thank Matt for his suggestion about the community speak one.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
May I just briefly say, to add one point there, I know we've got speeders along the high-speed roads, if I can call them that, high-speed speeders. We still have the continuing problem at the lower end of Manchester Road in Barnoldswick, which is a rural, partly, urban, partly narrow road, and you don't get wild boys doing 70 and 80 down there. You do get ordinary people in usually biggish cars doing a little bit more than they should, but probably causing as much danger because it's such a narrow area. So I do understand that you are thinking particularly about the high-speed roads, but do please include Manchester Road.
Can we just be clear, Councillor, whereabouts Manchester Road, is it where we're coming from Barrowford, if you will, and then...
No, particularly this end, coming out of Barwick. Just
coming out, going up?
Yeah, yeah. People come out of the 20, they've got a quite narrow road with houses on one side, and they wind up there and immediately go into the funnel, which is an even narrower road, which is wooded and dark. It's most of the way anybody has to stop for oncoming. So it's sort of voluntary one way, all the way up there. And very often people don't. But it's not the real speed freaks that are the problem. It's everybody just winding up a little bit too much and getting a little bit too cocky.
Okay.
And I think the other aspect of Manchester Road, and one where residents often report problems, is right at the top, where the tourist row is. There's Nolden at the end as you come into the built-up area, and it's wing mirrors getting knocked off. But the people who park on there, sorry, somebody's sort of the issue there is you know, the residents, you know, do find it quite risky pulling out. You know, somebody comes flying along at goodness knows what speed, whether they're coming into town or going out of town, really.
It is town, yeah.
Neither of which location, either at the bottom or right at the top, is appropriate for enforcement, and whenever there's any enforcement, it's in the middle on Tubriel itself.
Just a quick one. Whilst it's not speeding, it's the opposite end. The residents of Moorgate Road has asked me to have a look at Townhead. Double parking. It's really, really tight. Now, there is no lines as such or restrictions off parking, but what they've taken to do now is starting to use pavement to sort of free road up a little bit, which gives other problems. So I'm guessing once they do start parking on pavement, that they do overstep that line then and can be at least cautioned or told to move. We're in a rock and a hard place, because if they do start parking back on road, they'll just narrow the gap and we will not get a fire engine through there, or probably let bigger ambulances. So we're going to start by doing a social media campaign with local fire engine, just putting some pictures on, showing how tight that gap actually is, and now it can't really be reduced any more than what is there at the moment, and try and make that aware for the residents. The real difficulty here, right up tonight, there's really nowhere for them to go. We'll probably end up pushing them onto estate or surrounding streets, but it's a long way around if we can't get up there. But I keep saying, if they can't get up there, firing them, it's a long way around and a massive, massive time delay. If it's a significant incident,
I'll go
get up then. But we will be doing some. I'll pick a chat up with you, because if we can get as many agencies up there shouting the same song, we can then maybe try and pull on the heartstrings of the local residents and maybe get them to try and find somewhere else to park. Will be a little bit difficult because there's not a lot up there, but we have to keep that road clear. It's just a long way around.
Last thing from me, just dodging back to the speed issue, I haven't noticed any speed indicator devices, SPIDs, being deployed recently. And I mean, it's a few years ago that this committee actually bought one for use in West Craven, and it seems to have disappeared. I don't know. I'm assuming the road safety partnerships, tech and custodianship, but you know, it seems to have got lost. So
I will email them and copy you in to try and locate that, because if you've put money in, it should stay, shouldn't it?
well, it should, but it's a bit like them radios. Anyway, let's not go there.
I'll copy you. I'll email Gary. Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, can I ask if there's anything further? If not, can I thank the both of you for coming along. The sun's coming out, your patrol evening will be all the more pleasant for the vibe.
But much busier, Chair. Thank you, lovely to see you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Item 5 is the planning applications. So our audience, tonight's audience will be delighted, but we're going to go to another one first. So the first planning application is one for determination, which is Brook Shed at Earby. And Mr Watson, I think you've got some things to report.
Yes, Chairman. The committee asked last month for us to go and have some discussions with the developer around the engine house, around what could be done with that, the future of it, whether they could provide a roundabout at the junction of the confluence of the 3 or 4 roads, main road. The developer was happy to do that. They've given us one sketch plan of a scheme with the showing 2 houses where the engine house would be. That's as part one, and they're looking with their highways engineers to see what can happen with the roundabout. They have to look at the values there. Clearly they are a developer, they're not doing it for philanthropic reasons, they're there to make money from that, and they said they'll come back and discuss that with us, but it certainly hasn't been a door slam in the council's face. It said they'll look at it seriously.
Okay. Mr Watson, I know you've made inquiries of the County Council as to the feasibility of putting a roundabout there. Have you had any feedback on
No
that?
feedback from that, Chairman, not yet.
Right. And last...
Sorry, Chairman. They were going to also, their engineer was going to talk with the County Council's engineer as well, so and to look at what configuration could go there. But we'll report that back when we get information, Chairman.
Okay. So we haven't got any further forward apart from, there has been some proper investigations done. And the second issue, Mr Watson, is in terms of the Environment Agency, where they very recently reaffirmed their objection to the scheme. So where do we stand with that?
Chairman, there's an old comment that came back with Victoria Clough that will be affected by this, which is downstream, which, okay, if it increased flows, but you would have thought it would be in Earby Beck. But so we're trying to get some information from the Environment Agency as to exactly what they mean by that, because I didn't read it until today, because I'm not the case officer as such, but I was as confused perhaps as you were, Chairman, to that reference.
Yeah, I think there's too much up in the air for us to come to any view tonight, and I don't think the developers are chomping at the bit to, if we don't make a decision within the timescale, applicants can put an appeal in on the basis of non-determination. In other words, we haven't made a decision, the developer goes to the planning inspectorate on that basis. So we don't think that's the case. So I think my suggestion is that we are deferring this again. There's just one point I was communicating with a resident today, Mr Watson, and they pointed out that there are swifts nesting on the engine house and in the environs. I'm not saying on the walls, but I haven't been to have a look. So they are red listed, as we know. There are swifts nesting just over here, which we're keeping a careful eye on. And I think that we need to bear in mind that, you know, there is habitat there that we don't want to lose. Okay, any further comments, Susan? No?
No.
Yeah,
I'm waiting to hear what's coming back from Environment Agency again, because I looked at it and thought, what next, really?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to the developers, they've done a lot of work in creating, you know, space for the water. So, you know, lowering the back wall, digging out the land so that, you know, there's somewhere for the water to go. And, I mean, when the Environment Agency object on the basis of something to the other side of Avey, I'm scratching my head and thinking, something not right here. Councillor Tomwick.
Chairman, I wonder if these issues would be fine under delegated grant consent with the planning team looking at these, because, I mean, with the, you know, we know what we want, and I think the scheme overall we're happy with. It's just these comments from the other bodies which we want to sort out first, isn't it?
I'll bring it back to committee. The original deadline for making a decision on this was back in February. Now, I don't know whether the applicants asked for an extension, but you know, there's no particular urgency to get this one dealt with.
Jeremy, you'll probably fall off your seat here, but I think it should come back to committee in a way because of the engine house issue.
Yes.
Sorry, Tom, we're arguing against that. Not the other way, but I think there is going to be an issue around that the committee will probably want to make a decision.
Yeah. And I'll be quite honest, I said at the last meeting, my preference would be to retain the engine house, you know, even if it was converted into residential. You know, I think it is an important part of the street scene, and you know, it would be a loss to the heritage if it did go. But I accept it's a matter of, you know, compromises and balance and all that sort of stuff. Okay, are we content then to defer this one to the next meeting and try and resolve those issues? Yeah. And drum roll, there's people here for Barnsley Shed. So we're going to move on to that one. Now, this is a large application. It's above the threshold for determination by an area committee. So the local planning authority will deal with this at the Central Development Management Committee. The purpose of it being on the agenda tonight is to for this committee to submit comments about what they think should happen, but it's not up to us to make the decision. I just want to make that perfectly clear. Mr. Watson, is there anything you want to add to the report which is brief and to the point?
No, Chairman. I'll just point out that for me, from a planning perspective, probably the biggest issue is still the drainage, still the overland flows and capacity and where that surface water will go. I reread the inspector's decision on the last appeal, and it's basically saying the same things as where we are at the moment with the lead local floods comment. So that's all I'll say, Chairman.
Okay. Susan, this is in our ward, as opposed to, you know, people might think it's in Barnoldswick. Well, it is in Barnoldswick, but it's in the Evian Coats ward. Like Mr. Watson, I had a look at the inspector's decision when the previous application was turned down, and what the inspector said is there is an absence of conclusive evidence to demonstrate that the proposed drainage regime for the site would not cause elevated flood risk elsewhere. Goes on to quote various bits and bats about the local plan and the National Planning Policy Framework, and then concludes that the design of new developments must consider the risk the proposed development may pose to areas downslope/downstream. And I think that continues to apply. So I would suggest that our comments to the Development Management Committee should be on the basis of the Planning Inspectorate's previous decision on this line. which hasn't changed. I've looked very, very carefully at this application, and they are still taking the land which is used as a upstream storage to build houses, and the solution to land being a bog and it flooding is they build houses up a little bit higher, but it's taking away the space that the water currently occupies when we have flood conditions. Susie, did you want to come in on the impact on AV?
Yeah, well, I agreed with what was in the report about the fact that they still wanted to build on that part. Just as Neil said, it's still a risk. They haven't done anything to alleviate that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
same comments really.
Okay. And to be clear, I mean, I'm being very careful. The only thing, because it's been considered previously, it was rejected on the flood risk reasons. So the planning authority can only really, unless circumstances have changed in terms of policies, we can only look at it, the planning authority can only look at it from that point of view.
Yeah.
Any other objections, the planning authority can't take into account. This committee can say what it likes. You know, we can say, well, noise and all that sort of stuff. But Mr Watson will turn around at the end of the day and say, well, you can't take that into account because it's already been turned down on a very specific ground, and that's the only ground that it can be rejected on. Councillor Tomwick.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, no, I just think no plan there should be accepted without the same amount of storage capacity that it has now. I mean, if you have the houses the same layout, even if they're raised up on stilts, the house owners would need a canoe to get out of their house and to work. I mean, that field does flood. It floods for a reason. And unless you somehow manage to, store that water underground, which I don't think is feasible, given that, the height of the water comes up to, and over such a large distance, you can't do that. And I think previously that application only took into account greenfield runoff rates and the absorption of the grass there, but it's not as simple as that, and I think the inspector appreciated that fact and took that into consideration. So yeah, I think it, as I said when it previously came to here, we're not against the development of that site in general, and the brownfield development there is quite welcome for housing, but they just need to not build on the bit that floods.
Okay. Yeah. Is there general agreement on that? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I was going to say earlier on that Mr Watson could have an early bath, but he points out that the last item on tonight's agenda is all planning stuff as well. So he has to stay. Sorry. There you go, Sharon.
I'll fetch you another time.
Finishing off the planning issues, we've got item C, the appeals, which is one that Mr Watson's highlighted last time. We've given the planning inspector to nudge because they seem to have forgotten about it. Is there any progress with that one?
None whatsoever, Chairman. I had a look today. It's the last information, as I mentioned last time, the inspector was looking at it, so looking for it.
Yep. And item 6, enforcement action. We have a report on the buff coloured sheet or salmon coloured sheet. Rolled up pink at end of papers. Any comments on this one? Rakes Hill. Pleasing to see that there's work going on to surface the whole of that. I don't think the work's gone on to Longing Lane though. Callum?
They've started Sorry, Chair, they've started cutting into the road on Longing Lane. It's, I think either yesterday or today it's been cut. So the road itself's been cut down so they can actually use whatever they're putting into the ground, the new tarmac bit, whatever they're using. So they're storing that all in front of the new houses. So yeah, the work's on board.
Okay. How extensive is the cutting out?
Probably half the size of the road. As you go in up towards Rain or Longing, so as you come in from Silent Night up that way, it's that side of the road.
Right.
So out of the junction from Rakes Hill, halfway to Longing.
Okay. Has it covered up, have they cut out everywhere that they've been digging up to put the services in, or are we still going to have a like that?
It's hard to say at the minute, but they've done the pathways. The pathways got done last week, and then another pile of whatever's product they're using arrived yesterday. So and they just keep shifting it and popping it in like, but they've started cutting the road. So.
Mick?
Yeah, we've looked at it this evening on the way in. It looks like they've dug everything out down to the level, put the drop curbs in.
Yeah.
And the slabs, the sensory slabs for crossing, and then we've got the edges all sort of squared up, ready to put like a top coat in. So I don't think it'll be too long before it's done that.
Good. Mr. Watson?
As Councillor just said, won't be long. I'm informed tomorrow because we're in court with them, I think, next week. So the preparatory work, I'm informed by our solicitors, because our solicitors and theirs are talking, will be done tomorrow, so the servicing should be completed. We'll have another look tomorrow, because they want as you would expect, not to be prosecuted. So we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, just for those people who aren't aware, it was only the threat of prosecution that prompted the work actually getting underway, so a bit of a sad state of affairs. Tom?
Thanks, Chair. Through to Neil, I emailed you about the stair footpath access through to the housing flats along there. Did anything come out of that? Did they?
I've not checked with, sorry, through you, Chairman, I've not checked with our enforcement officer, but I did ask him to have a look at that to see whether it's something we could deal with.
We'll take a look on the way on and
Yeah.
see what's happening.
I think, Mr. Watson, I had a look at it recently, 2 weeks ago. I thought it had been resolved, but it might not be to your satisfaction.
Sure.
You did your work. Okay, so we note all of that. Are there any other issues on the other bits and bats? Well, bits and bats, not bits and bats. North Block and South Block. I think, we've got prosecutions pending on those. Yeah? Okay. Can we move on then to item 7, area committee budgets, and I think it's just a matter of report that the splits have been done on the basis of population or electorate in each of the townships and parishes. And for Sharon's benefit, this is an indicative allocation, so that we try and be fair across the piece. I think if there's a particular project in an area that needs a bit more, we can kind of fudge matters and it is an indicative allowance rather than a fixed amount. However, at the last meeting we did discuss South Park, and we've got a meeting to set up with both yourselves, Talbot and South Parish Council, and with Eby Town Council to discuss how we go forward with maintenance and management of the park. And excuse me, now that things have settled down a bit, we'd like to get forward with that. It would be my hope that we can come to some sort of arrangement where both the parish and the town council, plays a much greater role, with that. But on our side, we'd look to perhaps put a lot of this funding, what we've got in the area committee's budget, to doing improvements within the park, so that, you know, we set it off on a better footing than it is currently, because I think some of the aspects of the park are a bit sad and tired, and really does need an injection of TLC really to get it up to scratch.
And I mean, that is one of the things we want to drive forward as a group. And I have been chatting to the parks chaps, I can't remember the names. I've
Phil
talked to them.
Riley.
Yeah, I've been talking to them this week, because there's, already.
Yeah. So I think there's a prospect of getting forward. And Mr Walker, for his other sins, he's head of environmental services, so you know, he's the top chap with parks, aren't you?
I am, yes, it's in operational services now.
No, it's environmental services. We've never agreed to that as council.
That's what it says on your label.
Hey, look, you know, what sorry, I won't go there. Yeah, it's environmental services.
It says environmental services.
Yeah.
on the label.
And it will remain environmental services. God knows, changing all these titles and job titles and all that sort of stuff. But as I say, let's just carry on. So we're noting. Sorry, Tom.
Yeah, I'll second the indicative budget as set out as that. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a good way to just have an idea for, you know, what sort of funding should be going
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yes, I know. Yes, we did. I can't read the blasted application, never mind have a sensible discussion with them. Sorry, I was going to ask you, Joanne, for the people's contact details at the Rolls Royce. So, now that I'm less busy with other things, we'll get on with that. Okay. Yep. Item 8, representatives on outside bodies. We have one, definitely.
I don't know what that is, I'm sorry.
The IDB, Eden Salterforth Internal Drainage Board, in the administrative county of Lancashire, Eden Salterforth Internal Drainage Board is the only one. There is only one in the entirety of a Lancashire administrative area. So it's pretty unique, but they're quite common when you get into Yorkshire, like what it is really. So it's not unique in Yorkshire. But it's to look after the drainage in the bottoms. Sorry, it's the bottom land. So it was created so as to drain, and if you look at the picture on the wall, which shows, you know, most of the valley bottom, it's very flat, and in order to make it productive land in the past, they created, the new cut, so that the land would drain and they could farm it, and the internal drainage board is to look after that. So it should be one of the other two EV and Coates Ward councillors. So it's a competition of misery between yourself and myself.
Right.
But I'm happy to do it.
Right, that's fine then.
You're going to move me, aren't you?
Yes.
I thought you would.
Yes.
Right. Is that seconded? I'm sure Rosemary and I will get on like a house on fire with the Indian Salterforth of Internal Drainage Board. Thank you very much. Right, item 9 then. Proposed diversion of public footpath 57 at Rachel Barnoldswick. The committee has considered this on several occasions. On the first occasion, we said we weren't very happy with it going through the woods, and we asked for it to go down the tarmac path. Blind Eye seemed to be taken to that. On the second occasion, when they came to sort of confirm the order, we said, well, we rather went down the tarmac path, and we've got another report that says, oh, we don't want to send it down the tarmac path, can't we go through it instead. So this is the third time of asking the officialdom has said we want to go through the wood, and yeah. So, who's going to lead off? Tom, will you indicate?
Sure, yeah. I don't know, there's no satisfying way out of this, I don't think. We've got somewhat of a path which, you know, works and people do use it. There's a question mark of if we divert like they suggest, would that path be retained? Would the house owners then be in their rights to fence it off, block it off, and then incorporate it into their gardens? You've then gone from a nice tarmac path, albeit a bit tight, to having to go through the woods, which if you're in work uniform, maybe is not an attractive option for getting to work. So it's about finding a way where we can keep that path for public ownership and usage, and not having this right of way through people's houses. Is there a way? Yeah. I think we have to accept that the diversion has to happen. Really.
Which diversion are you referring to?
Well,
Option 1.
it has. Why can't we have both? I think. Because no, so the LCC is likely to object to the option 2 going through the newly resurfaced path because it's not wide enough. You're going to struggle to get any size wheelchair down there. You can't have anyone using a bike down it because it's just too narrow. You run into people walking. And on the other hand, option 1 is also not ideal because you're going through the woods and you lose that tarmac path. I mean, why can't we have both?
Susan.
That was my opinion too, when I was looking at this, when I got the notes and everything. And I thought, well, the workers aren't going to want to go through the wood. And in the winter, is that going to be a satisfactory option for people going to work day in and day out? Leisure walkers can just take the choice, you know,
Yeah.
they won't go through. Somebody who's going to work, it's a matter of urgency that they can actually get to work. So again, why can't we keep both, or some sort of an option?
Okay. Well, it sounds like we're going to wind Mr. Partridge up. Mr. Partridge is the officer. But if that's the mind of the committee, we could put that back to him. Yeah? Okay. Is he in your section, David?
It is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think there is a further item which Tom might be coming on to, so...
Yeah, just piggybacking off this, to David, so towards the Silent Night end, there's the footpath that goes onto Victoria Road. That's in quite sort of disrepair at the moment, very overgrown, inaccessible, and everyone just goes through the gate hole instead. Which isn't a public right of way, but I mean it's used like one because there's no longer a gate in the gate hole. And I imagine Tom Partridge just turn around and say, well, we need to clear the proper right of way that's marked on the definitive map, and that's probably a likely outcome. But also I think, you know, people do use that main way through the gate hole, and I wonder if there's any possibility of getting the landowner to make an improvement there. Okay,
so it's probably to ask that any diversion order incorporates an appropriate adjustment at the Victoria Road end to take into account the actual used path, the line on the map. Yeah, which I've very roughly sort of scribbled on Mr Walker's copy so he can convey that to Mr Partridge.
It's all there, Chair. It's all
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, I think it's likely that we'll be getting this one back at the next meeting or the one after that, but yeah, I think they're on a hiding to nothing because the county council have indicated that they are going to object if we press on with trying to get the tarmac path, the public right of way, and the county council, the highway authority, so apart from anything else, they'll probably sack us from actually looking at public rights of way. Yeah, okay, so we clear there. The request is to see if we can get both. Thank you. Anything further on that? No? Moving on then. Item 10 is environmental blight. This is a report that we get from time to time, and it's where there are areas of council land which are in a bit of a state, and on the back of the report there's a Damhead Road garage site in Barnoldswick and the West Coast Lorry Park in Barlick, which have been previously highlighted. If there are other areas of council land that you want to get added onto the list, you just ask and they'll get added on and picked up and try and deal with them, really. Any comments or questions on this? Callum?
If this classes the parking areas out back of my residence,
Could do.
because I did raise this, possibly not last year, the year before.
Yeah.
And it was about February, March time, and at the time, at the end of the financial year, we picked up the following one, and obviously it's not been picked up yet.
Okay. I'm not sure whether you need to declare a prejudicial person, a amendment for the other one. But you don't actually pay for it, do you? No. Okay. So, Councillor Hurd is referring to land to the rear of Clayton Street, and it's like a residence parking area, and then there's a fence, and then there's some land which I'm not sure how that hasn't been transferred to Barnoldswick Town Council, but perhaps if we can have a report on it, and we'll find out.
What's wrong with the land?
Fence is falling to bits, looks a mess. I think residents should get no.
I have been asked if you want to take these off because they've been on for quite some time.
Yeah.
And they are being regularly monitored.
As far as West Coast Lorry Park is concerned, which is in our ward, Susan, in our ward, I regularly find fly tipping there, and I think it remains a problem. The surfacing, which has been carried out, is wonderful, very good, excellent value for money, and grateful to the County Council for putting around in the box, forcing Pendle Council's arm in getting the work done. And the contractors, as necessity, had to cut back the vegetation so that tidied that up. There is a continuing problem with fly tipping into the banking, you know, the soft landscaping at the edge of the lorry park, and I wonder whether it would benefit from having a fence to, you know, sort of prevent that. But I'm a bit like that. Would a fence prevent it getting tidied up, but not necessarily prevent it getting dumped upon? So perhaps we could have it back with that consideration in mind. Yeah? Tom?
Could we not ask the county council to have an out-of-hours skip for people to fly it into, so it's conveniently ready to go into the recycling centre?
Well, you could, but the county council never ever clear it.
No.
It's always Mr Walker's operatives in environmental services who end up clearing the fly tipping, because despite the fact that it's been on the county council doorstep, they don't take any ownership of it. So it's a good thought, but no, and I suspect if you put a skip there, that would just attract like a magnet, wouldn't it? It's like when we had council housing and we used to put skips out on the road for people to get rid of the bulky waste. And you know, you put a skip there one day, next day there'd be about 20 skips worth of rubbish sort of spread out the big thing. And it was just like, you're better off not having it and trying to keep track of, you know, keep a lid on it really. Yeah. So, Joanne, good try. Well, that one. What about the Damhead garage site? I mean, it continues to be a problem. It's, you know, the fact that it's on this list means that perhaps somebody from Mr. Walker's section does go and have a look at it every now and again.
Mr. Chairman, we regularly patrol on both sides. Officers are reporting improvements. If you feel that there is still a problem, then
Apart from a few garages falling over, I mean, it's just a fly tip in the set.
Okay. Could I suggest that we have an informal site visit to the Damhead Road garage site? Have a look around it, and as councillors think, well, yeah, okay then, or not okay as the case may be. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So, as I say, Joanne, good try. Good try. Item 11. The former Gospel Mission Hall, Hollins Road, Barnoldswick. And this is an old favourite. The backstory is, in the 1950s, Craven District Council, in their generosity, I will use the word sold advisedly, sold land to the Gospel Mission in order for the Gospel Mission to erect a place of worship, which they duly did, which was, as far as I can see it, an ex-RAF hut that was repurposed for their church. They sold it for £2 at Craven District on the basis that there was a covenant and they could only build a church there. So the land can be used for different things, but any building can only be used as a church. The Gospel Mission moved out a few years ago to new premises in the town and subsequently sold the old site, and there has been a change in ownership several times now, and there have been requests over the years for the covenant to be relaxed in order for it to be used for things other than a church. And I think on at least 2 or perhaps 3 previous occasions, this committee, of different membership, but this committee has said no, we won't relax the covenant. And I've advised the current owner that you know, he's got the option to go to a lands tribunal to get the covenant relaxed. It would still have to pay compensation to Pendle Council for the increase in value over and above the £2 that was paid for it back in the 1950s. But a lands tribunal could determine the issue. Councillor Tom Whip.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still of the opinion that, you know, it's parkland that was, well, for £2 gifted to the Gospel Mission to house their church, and should rightly be gifted back to the council to be returned as park usage. I think the covenant clearly, you know, sets out why it was sold for so little, and I think that, you know, for someone to commercially gain from that now is a bit wrong, and it should be returned back to a means of usage. I think to see those gardens reduced in size would be a shame. I'm aware some people may have different views on that. I also think, you know, the way that we might get a, what do we call it, appropriate level of capital receipt for the increase in value How would you measure the value of parkland? You don't really have a market value you can compare that to. And you know, how do you account for the loss of value that makes for the people that use that area, which you don't really see in the capital receipt for housing land sales?
Okay.
I'm really sympathetic to Tom's, support on that, and I really am. But having seen this now for so long, just decay, and we do nothing with it, or nobody does anything with it. I'm just concerned that if the inevitable happens down there and it's set on fire or falls over and ends up in that stream, the contaminants, etc., is going to be catastrophic from the asbestos and stuff that's there. And whilst I would love to see it restored, replaced, whatever, and add value to the Ballet Gardens Park, which I think it should, it's difficult that getting that way. I don't think that the current owner that's paid significant more than £2 for it is not going to hand it back for £2, even in today's, climate, in terms of where we're pushing him into a corner to try and do something with it. I just worry that something might happen with it, that we end up with a big pile of ashes, cinder and contaminated land and surrounding park.
Don't give anybody any ideas.
No, but the problem is I've attended things like this for so many years and seen it, that it's inevitable that sometimes it happens. Not necessarily from the owners, I wouldn't suggest for 1 minute that's what they would do, but it's just ASB type stuff that is all too frequently common throughout Pendle. We lost a massive chunk of Marsden Park Golf Club in last year. So if that's an area that could be targeted, then certainly somewhere like that it is. I just think we should consider what the options are. Does it stay where it is? Had the church disbanded and we would have lost the church, I think I'd have been absolutely concrete behind Tom's proposal of saying it stays there, but they only relocated, so we didn't kind of lose the church in the town. I just think we have to try and look at it from a different point of view now as a building and a piece of land.
Okay. Of the ward councillors, we've got sort of two opposing opinions. Before I bring the third ward councillor in, who's the deal breaker, or not deal breaker, but you get the drift, could I suggest a third way forward, which would not lead to a decision tonight, but could we ask the residents who live on that side of Holland Road, before we make a decision, what they think, because I think they will have views perhaps for and against, but I think they are, besides the general public using the park, they are the ones most closely affected by the building, and they might be as equally fed up with everybody else, or they might say, well, we're fed up with that building, but we don't want somebody coming and they've got umpteen cars and back streets all clogged up and etc. So is that a happy medium in order to try and resolve the issue?
100%.
Yeah, entirely.
Okay. Shall we resolve to do that? Yeah? Be content with that?
I'd second that.
Okay. Right. So I think the idea is that we consult the residents on that side of Holland Road. We set out, what the position is, and seek their views. We report them to the next meeting, and we advise the owner that we'll be discussing it at that point. Yeah? Yeah? Very good. I'm glad I thought of that whilst you were speaking. I don't like people having dissenting.
No, I totally get it.
Right. Item 12, items for the discussion. So we've got 1, 2, 3. Have I missed something? No. Items to discussion. So the first one, TransDev and the impact of the cancellation of the Whiz service in April, and the repercussions are still carrying on. And my suggestion would be that we sort a meeting with, seek a meeting with TransDev in order to discuss what improvements can be made and what changes can be made. Nick?
I think we have to. We can't sit here and sort of surmise what they may or may not say, so I think we definitely need to sit down with them and get them around our table.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's supported. Yeah, thank you very much. Did you want to speak, Tom?
I did, but it's of no consequence.
Okay. Move on then. I'll get kicked there, John. The next item is to consider difficulties experienced from there being few cash machines in West Craven, many of which are often broken down or empty. I mean, I can't be alone in being stopped on the street by people saying we can't get any cash. This is a big issue and getting worse. I saw Susan nodding vigorously there.
Do I have a pecuniary interest in this?
Well, you want
my
some money?
my customers come in and ask things like this about the cash machines. But there's one in here which is in the co-op, and that people are saying that it's often broken, not working, and that's it. And with the ongoing problems with the health problems of the owner of Wineline, where people can also draw cash out, the hours have been limited, which has been giving people a lot more problems. Since the bank left, however long ago that was, seems like a long time ago, but that's the only facility for, two facilities for drawing out money now.
Yeah. Chris?
Yeah, I think this, but especially when Susan refers to the previous loss of a bank there, of course that makes it all the more relevant in Barnoldswick now, because most people are absolutely dependent on the cash machine, be it the one in the co-op or the one, is it one or two in town? Very, very few, a diminishing number certainly, because there was one connected to the bank. So this problem is now getting doubly worse in Barwick because of that, and whoever it is we can approach to see if they can provide any solution, we ought to do that. I know that more shops nowadays do give cash back, but that's not available to anybody. We have to think about those people who are the most stuck, who depend absolutely on cash machines, and there are whole deserts where there are just none. Town centre cash machine deserts, call them what you will. I don't know who we would approach to find some solution to this, but we should look and see whoever.
Tom?
Presumably anyone could commission a hole-in-the-wall cash machine. I mean, I wonder if we should get a report on the costs involved and if we could potentially install one on a premises in the town centre to retain for ever a day. I mean, think about suitable properties. Our MP Andrew Stevenson has a shop frontage and he's committed to opening a banking hub in Barnoldswick. Perhaps he could install a cash machine on his shop front.
Right. I have a memory of a recent press photograph where the MP was seen cutting the ribbon for the bank without money, which is located in the Reynolds Centre, which just at least, you know, Lloyd's TSB being a trailer, I don't think they have it stuffed full of cash when they come every fortnight or whenever it is. But yeah, I mean, perhaps the respective town councils could, you know, the banking facility. I think it's getting pretty desperate. So I've got Susan.
That's not a bad idea actually. Not the, maybe the town councils. That could be quite interesting. We did have another one when the post office was where the post office was on the corner opposite the co-op. But they did get ram-raided.
Well, that's going to inspire people to say, oh yeah, we'll have a cash machine.
Precisely. So
Appropriate bollard.
yes, it would need to be made so that they couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But we lost the post office and we lost that cash machine there as well.
And thinking about it, the garages, I think both of them were ripped out, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Perhaps not a good idea for.
But there are already some bollards, you know, certainly in the ear bay that may prevent some.
Okay. Right. Can we? There is an association of some sort of cash machine providers, and I did learn it at one point, but I've forgotten it. So I think the first point of call would be to get onto them to see what. I mean, this must be a problem across the country and an increasing issue for many communities. So if we aren't the first, I'm sure that we can get some learning from elsewhere, and I doubt very much if we will be the first. So let's, Joanne, we'll set you a challenge of finding out who it is. Sorry about that. Is that a way forward? And there was another suggestion in amongst there, which I've lost track of. I think it, you know, was perhaps looking to see if there were other organisations or property owners that could incorporate a cash machine inside their premises.
Well,
Sorry, Mick.
I mean, supermarkets in larger towns have got sort of 3 or 4 of these, haven't they, stuck side by side. It's maybe, I mean, ideally we need something in town, because that's where the difficulty will be for the elderly and etc. But as an opposed to looking as well wider, then maybe like Aldi and as that little estate sort of grows, it's quite a hope. There's a lot of people going backwards and forwards. It may be that they could, if they don't already do so, on another site, facilitate it.
Yeah.
Just to give us an extra one.
But I think the issue is the one that the post office in Barley, that's out of commission half a week, and then the co-op runs out, so then people are having to go down to Spa or on Kelbert Road, and you know, same problem in Erie. So yeah, there is one in the co-op in both communities. Runs out of brass. Callum.
Like Mick mentioned, I have noticed in other towns, if you go to Colne has a cash machine now, so it might be worth approaching now to see if they can implement one at Barnoldswick.
Okay, you probably only get, you know, it's discounted, so you only get 90p a pound. Chris?
I think if the chairman, if you know of this association, that's what I was fumbling for, asking to find out about. So if you know the answer, that's probably the first point of contact. Although I would think if a supermarket such as Aldi has them in some areas, it is known for its consistency across all its branches, so it would be well worth approaching to see about putting one here.
Okay. So I think we've got sort of like a 2 or 3 part resolution, haven't we? With, you know, sort of approaching the providers, approaching potential locations and including the supermarkets in that discussion. Although in Airby we've only got the court. Yeah. I mean, it might be that, you know, financial, that services people, you know, building society.
The select and sales as well.
Yeah. Okay. Anything further on that? If not, sorry, mate.
Sorry, just one quick one. I think, particularly with the co-op, Barnoldswick candidate, if we could approach them to put their cash machines on an external wall, it's 24/7 then, isn't it? It's not just in the opening hours. So I think that'd be a fairly big help as well.
Okay. Moving on then, the next item's a two-parter. If we start with Victoria Road at Earby, there was an update emailed round about this. Thank you. And I don't know if everybody's seen that. No? Okay. I'm going to read it out. So, the engineering team were not able to commence physical works and make the spend of the year one allocation due to the late start of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. People will be aware that I call that the Shared Poverty Fund, but there you go, UK SPF. As spend needs to be made in year, we are currently awaiting confirmation from government that we can transfer these unspent funds into year 2 of the programme. We anticipate a positive outcome on this. The funds for year 2 of the UK Shared Poverty Fund programme have not yet been released to the council by government, because of course they don't realise that, you know, actually to spend money you've got to sort of get on with it rather than wait till halfway through here and then expect a minor miracle to happen. All district councils are in this position because they always dump on local councils from great height. It is our, sorry, these interjections aren't included in the script. It is our understanding that the next tranche of funds will be released upon completion of the review of end-of-year monitoring reports. We have been informally advised that this may be the end of June. Doesn't say whether there's a year on that or not. It might be June 2025, but there you go. Update on works. Airby scheme. The design and contract documentation of this scheme is almost complete, but will need LCC technical approval before the works can be tendered. There has been dialogue with LCC about their requirements for future highway public road schemes, which is not expected to be onerous, but may require PBC to enter into a formal agreement similar to the existing Barley Footway scheme and provide additional documentation, site waste management plan, etc. That scheme, Victoria Road in Earby, mainly consists of replacing existing stone flags with new ones and doesn't include for any substantial changes to the layout. Therefore, it should be relatively straightforward in terms of what's needed, and it is thought that this scheme could be physically undertaken in autumn this year. In respect of the Earby scheme, you recall that Area, well, you won't because some of you were here, but Area Committee did allocate some funding out of last year's financial programme towards that. There was still a shortfall, and it's my understanding that the County Council has allocated £50,000 towards the programme. However, no one at Pendle Council appears to know about this apart from the Chief Executive, and it was only an aside from the Chief Executive that she told me. So I'm just a bit in the dark about that, and we're trying to find out this afternoon without any success. Moving on to the Barnoldswick scheme, it's just to say that we've resolved to have a consultation exercise, and that needs to be carried out, and once the preferred design is known, this will work up into detailed drawing to submit to LCC for approval. They are already aware of the proposals, and they'd need to give consent. So, if we think about Victoria Road at Ely for a start, so Susan, you were concerned about the state of the footpaths currently.
Yes, there's lots of people saying that they've tripped, fallen, etc. I had a complaint from a wheelchair user saying that they had great difficulty going along those pavements and getting down the trot pavements, which aren't fit for purpose. It came up at the meeting which I attended, where there were a number of residents that were concerned about those pavements, and it was there that I was told that the funding was actually there, as it says here, from the area committee budget. So I'm just wondering why this hasn't gone ahead.
I think
You've
the
just
short
said
answer. The short answer is partly to do with the funding arrangements, because the bulk of the funding comes through UK Shared Prosperity Fund. The other aspect of it is that Pendle is currently without any real civil engineering capability, because they all left, because nobody had the foresight to think that, well, they are a key part of delivering lots of stuff in Pendle, and didn't lift a finger to keep them here, rather than let them go for other authorities. But don't let me get my high horse about that, because there's nobody here can affect that. But they might be listening on the live stream or the recording of this, so perhaps I'll get my point over yet again.
Can we outsource this?
Well, yes, we can outsource it, but Pendle has been very good at actually getting stuff done, because we have the in-house capabilities. We have people who knew what they were doing. We're able to do it for half the cost of the county council. You know, we crack on and we get things done. You know, Pendle is transforming from a can-do council to a couldn't-care-less council, and that doesn't half get up my nose. Thank you very much. Sorry, Susan, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I understand that. And,
yeah, yeah,
you know, we've known about the problem for a long time now,
yeah.
and still we've got elderly residents having
Yes.
problems.
We've got the funding in place. Well, as long as we've got the money, the LCC 50,000, which I have been told is there, because there was a funding gap between what we put in and what was available from UK Shared Prosperity Fund to carry out the entirety of the scheme. But we don't have the people to deliver it, so even if we get all those ducks in a row, I have no idea how it's actually going to be done. And you know, if some person in their ivory castle thinks that, you know, we're all going to magic civil engineers out of nowhere, they've got another thing coming.
So,
Susan.
and then would that possibly mean if we can't do it in-house that the costs would then go up and we may not have enough funding?
If county council do it, I could bet my bottom dollar it'd be at least 50% more than Pendle Council supervising it. And in other schemes that we've got comparable costs between Pendle doing, you know, not Pendle doing it, you know, themselves, but contracting other people to do it. I've seen comparisons where the LCC cost is double. So it kills the scheme. And with great respect to colleagues at the County Council, you know, they are not a responsive organisation. You know, they're the organisation that likes to say no. So, you know, I think we're going to struggle. I do have Tom wanting to come in, so.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I'd hope there's maybe some other engineering sections at other local councils nearby that might be able to take the work on for an engineering fee. Maybe Burnley Council. I think we have to see what comes out of it, don't we? So, I mean, it's not completely out of the running yet. We've still got the funding there as of this moment. But the reason I put this forward for discussion is that currently on the table is just a rehash of the current layout that we have right now. It doesn't improve accessibility. it doesn't improve the public realm in terms of people being there. I mean, at the moment now, you've got car parking and a way for pedestrians to walk up and down. There's nowhere to be on Victoria Road outside of a shop. There's no proper provision for benches along that main section of shops like there is in Barnoldswick. There's no trees for shade. I think there's a lot of space to make the area better, more attractive for shopping, to be there, to make you want to stick around the centre of Ely, than what's there now. And so, I mean, what I propose is we have a site visit to talk these things through, to maybe look at raised crossings along the side roads along Victoria Road, to maybe think about taking out a couple of car parking spaces for bench provision, maybe street trees. I know LCC still owes us a street tree from the one they took out on Albert Road in Barnoldswick, so I wonder if they would cover the cost to install a street tree maybe under that. Yeah, I think it's an opportunity here that we haven't fully grasped, and I understand the urgency that people feel for wanting to get it done, but I also think we should get it right, because these opportunities only come around every 25-50 years, and with public realm improvements, once you do it, it's there until it's the end of its lifetime, and you know, that's like half someone's life.
Okay. Tom suggesting the site visit, I think that would be acceptable to everybody. Could I suggest that we try and get the town council on board again?
Yeah.
You may recall that, and I'm looking at Mick, and you weren't here, so you wouldn't recall, but last year we did try and get Ely Town Council on board with a bit more adventurous scheme, which would have involved creating an event space, so that there was a focus for actually having town centre events in Ely. The town council of the day rejected that approach, but it's different town councillors now, so we might get a different answer. The point Susan made about accessibility, you know, wheelchairs and things like that, drop curbs. What Councillor Tomwick is suggesting is that the side streets have vehicle crossovers, and I think that's one of the more successful things that has been done on Albert Road in Barnoldswick, where instead of vehicles having the priorities that come out of the side streets, it's the pedestrians who have the priority, and there's a smooth transition across that roadway junction for the pedestrians, and the vehicles just have to go up a little bit, and that has transformed the way in which wheelchair users, people with prams, have been able to use the pavement on there. So I think that's admirably suited to Victoria Road and something that we'd want to look at. The final thing in terms of the UK Shared Poverty Fund is it is a 3-year programme. The 3rd year has been held back, and I think that the sensible thing to do is to actually look, you know, for economies of scale, is to actually look at a programme that isn't stop-start in year. You've got 6 months to do it, and if you don't do it, you know, you sort of, up the Khyber. But, you know, to roll the whole of the funding into a progression so that we can work through all the stages in Ely and subsequently in Barnoldswick. Mr. Watson.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. The government have told us a few things. One is that we are going to be allowed to roll year 1 to year 2. That's, I think, as common as you can be, that will happen. We will not be allowed to roll year 2 into year 3. It has to be spent.
Right.
They made that clear.
We're about bringing year 3 forward, or
we won't get. We've not been told we'll get the funding for that, so that's unlikely to happen. But Chairman, you're on the delivery group, that there is another £560,000 of public realm for Pendle, and we're going to bring reports back shortly to ask for year 3 funding for ideas, because that's not just for West Craven, but that will be a
Oh yes, it is.
It is now, is it?
It is, definitely. it always was.
Right, okay.
It always was.
In the programme, I won't argue with that, Chairman.
Okay. I think there might be a bit for Briarfield, but the bulk of it is West Craven. It's already in the programme, it's, you know, just needs signing off really.
I'll keep my powder around that.
Right, okay, so there's a site visit, engage Abbey Town Council, look at amending the scheme to incorporate at the very least the vehicle crossovers and anything else that Tom can persuade us to be more radical about, which everybody else will be a bit reticent. Tom?
Yeah, I'd really hope we could get someone from Abbey Town Council or rep to come to a site visit, and then we can talk through ideas and
Yeah.
kind of relay back for a more supportive resolution from them.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they haven't really been involved in the sort of thinking behind it previously.
No.
Yeah.
And I mean, unless Abbey Town Council's co-opted more people, it's a handful of people, so
It's fair.
you know, we can engage with each and every one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Susan?
They were saying that it's very tight for the town council. You know, they're struggling sometimes for quorum.
Right.
They need more members.
Yeah. Okay. Right, that's another issue, isn't it? Okay, so looking at Barnoldswick, I mean, I think it's just a case that we want to push for this consultation to get underway, and that was limited to the sort of Newtown issue, but I think certainly Tom and I would like to, you know, taking into account the year 3 where there's significantly more funding, you know, we would like to look at a more all-encompassing package of work to be carried out. Yeah, Chris?
Do we know any reason why the consultation is not happening yet?
Because there aren't people to do it.
Just that, yeah.
Yeah. You know, we had conversations with people who have departed this fair borough for a neighbouring fair borough. Tom?
Light bulb moment, but Barnoldswick Master Plan is going to have another round of consultation apparently very soon. I mean, I wonder if we could tack it on, because I mean they had people coming out for a full day on the town square under the marquee, didn't they? Thought.
You know how to press my buttons, don't you?
I do.
Barnoldswick Master Plan, right? There's a Barnoldswick and Abbey Master Plan. You know, you may not have heard about this. Not many people have. There was a consultation event on the town square in Barnoldswick. You know, I was having to drag people off the pavement. Oh, come and have a look at this consultation. You know, that is the biggest load of eyewash that I've ever seen. And we're talking scores of thousands of pounds blown on these master plans. And I have not, you know, there's been no engagement with public or properly with town or parish councils. And you know, it's just a complete and utter money down the drain thing. And yeah, you best not even go in there, Tom. Yes. It would be good to get some of the town to it, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah.
Okay, does that bring us to the end of that one? Any further comments?
No, just briefly going back to the Abbey one, it's really important. I think looking at social media, there's many comments around the events that we hold in Barnoldswick. Why don't we do this at Abbey? Just a bit of a play really, if anybody's watching, get behind your town council, get out and come and speak to us when we're out there and having a look on a site visit, because if you want something, you've got to be there, you've got to push it. It's not going to come to you. So just support it, get behind it.
Yeah.
I think you're right about the space, Tom. I think it's an absolutely brilliant idea that the width of them pavements there, looked at properly, and with the leakage, like you said about the pedestrian areas across,
Yeah.
gives you a great space, and it's just wasted at the moment.
I mean, all credit to the team on the Ely Town Council, who really are very, very positive in terms of having events, and you know they really are trying to get things going, and I think that they're doing a cracking job. So the more that we can get support from, the better.
There is
Susan?
also an events group
Yeah.
which have been organising things which have been really good, using the green and
Yeah.
such like. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Moving then on. Sorry, Sharon, did you want to go in?
That's what I was coming in with.
No, Sharon.
That's what I was coming in with the same thing, that
Yeah.
obviously there is the events group and they are using that green as a space.
Okay. I really need to get you to sit over the side of the table because I'm just looking over there constantly. Do apologise. Right. The next bullet point here is to consider motorcycle parking on the town square. Tom, you asked for this one.
I did. I'm really not a motorcyclist, so I can't speak with confidence over what sort of
Fear not,
we could put in place.
we have
I
somebody
know,
here.
I know, I'm going to get to that. I reached out to Nick before I asked for this on the agenda. But in essence, we've got motorcyclists coming over the sets, which is a restricted access over times, and then parking their motorcycles on the pavement, which isn't ideal for pedestrian and wheelchair access. I get why they do it though. They don't want the bike to get knocked with the car trying to get in the car parking spot, like they own the place. They want to keep a line of sight to the bikes, completely get that. I ride an electric bike, quite the same as a motorbike, but I do the same. And I just wonder if there's a compromise. I think we need to ask questions like, what's the best way of doing it? You know, what would people actually use? There's no point putting something in there which just wouldn't get used and they continue doing what they do. But I think it is important that we provide access to people on motorbikes to come into the town square. We do support the local businesses when they come in. I think that's a good thing. So I mean, I'd want to reach out to any local motorbike businesses. I know there's the Rusty Spoke. They're quite local, and I wonder if there is, motorbike organisations out there that represent bikers and maybe could provide some advice to the council on this. But yeah.
Well, the guy that rides, I think it's a Harley. I know him, and so we've got a sort of contact there. Yeah, Mick.
Yeah, there's lots and lots of groups, Tom. Social media's awash with different riding groups and things like that, and it's just gathered pace, particularly since pandemic, where people were allowed to get out and actually do something if they had a motorbike because they were on their own. Sales increases on motorcycles massively. People bought scooters and things like that, and you saw the market value of them just going through the roof. So, and Tom and I had a look round the town square, but we were just trying to fit something in, wasn't we, where it still facilitated us as a town council for events and stuff like that. There's no point in giving them something that you have to take away, throughout the months of the summer whilst we organise events and stuff. So I fully support what Tom's proposing, and I think we should press on with it.
Okay. The other aspect that occurred to me, we did have a discussion in terms about sustainable travel, about provision of cycle racks, actually as part of the street furniture, and taking into account what Tom was saying about close to where cyclists would be. If they've got a £4,000 bike, they're not going to hide it around a corner somewhere. So I think we need to pick that one up again, because that's got lost in translation somewhere, and the loss of the engineers, which I won't go on about. but you know, a lot of the sort of requests that we made, you know, they walked out the door because you know nobody has a clue what we've had previously discussed. So what exactly are we resolving in terms of motorbikes?
I don't know. I think commitment to reach out to people who have an idea of what they want.
Some involvement from the group, so
Okay.
get them to
Right.
have a look and see what, you know, they've maybe experienced in other towns
Okay.
and
I
villages.
think there's an ask to County Council over what we can do in terms of changing a parking bay into a bike bay.
Are we not
legalities
better asking
are.
for forgiveness rather than permission?
We could ask one of the engineering department people who know what they're doing around what's his name?
Okay, Chris.
Yeah. Could there be anything in this that is relevant to the consultation on the changes to the one-way system?
Yeah.
Could we ask or involve the consultation with the bikers groups on the wider discussion on the one-way options? I mean, I'm only guessing, but when you shuffle so much round in a town, there are going to be little bubbles of space here and there, which might not have existed before. And I haven't up to now heard of any reference to them involving motorbikes.
Well, I think that good old master plan we ought to put in saying we want proper permission for motorbikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, those master planners. Yeah. These master planners aren't in your section, I hope, Mr. Walker. How many in your section, Mr. Walker? So nobody's going to be reporting back to say, oh, that area committee.
They're probably watching it.
They're probably watching it.
They've all said no, they
But if we can simply get whoever is
Yes.
organising general consultation
Okay.
to talk to these people here who know about the biker groups
Yeah.
and see about involving them,
Yeah.
you can try.
Okay. I can see headline now. Barlick welcomes Hell's Angels. Sorry, Robbie. I'll never make it. But look, right.
Just another thing, car parks, we could put a bike bar in a car park as well, like car park and, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, very good.
Put it out there.
Joanne, have you a clue what we're going to do?
I'll make something up. Yeah.
Thank you. Right. Very good. So we're going to reach out and we're going to see about incorporating provision for motorcyclists within any master planning or street scene alterations, what we might make. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Does that then take us on to turning the page to the last item on the agenda? Item 13, we're looking for some outstanding items. Anything anybody wants to say on that? Tom?
Is it worth us putting in a nominal sum on the footpath improvements, just to sort of have it under budget header and ask the county council how much they're going to cough up for it?
Okay. Are you going to propose a nominal sum?
Yeah. Don't know how much is nominal.
500 quid.
500 quid. Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that meet with the agreement?
Yes.
Sorry, Susan.
No, yes,
Yeah.
I'm agreeing.
Okay. So out of the indicative allocation for Barnoldswick, we nominally allocate 500 quid to put in a pot, which hopefully will grow at an exponential rate, so that we've got enough money to...
In that, I think we do need to tell LCC to cough up some money for that,
Yeah.
because it should have been done when they built the schools.
Okay. I think the sum of money would have to have several notes on it
Yeah.
to be realistic. So we don't want them to match our 500. We have 1,000
Have some gravel, please, from someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I think there is some political commitment to do that. So let's seize the day really and take it forward if we can. Yeah. So as far as church schools concerned, allocate £500 capital programme and reiterate our request to LCC to approve a scheme over their land and with their money in order to help resolve the issues at the church school for access and egress and all that sort of stuff. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Item 14, to the delight of the Assembly, is exclusion of the public and press. Robbie's signalling.
Just before I go on, can I ask a very quick point, just clarification on a couple of things you talked about?
Of course you can.
So just mention that very briefly. You just, did you talk about an EAB events group? Did I understand that correctly? You talked about an EAB events group?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so.
There's an EAB events group, which is aligned very closely with the EAB Town Council. The main mover, or one of the main movers there, is a lady called Diane Anderson.
Okay, thank you. The second question, again, just neutral diplomatic language. You've been talking about the master plan, the Barnoldswick master plan. Your thoughts about that? Just so I'm clear again, just neutral language. Am I correct in saying that's been done by an outside body, outside? How should I
I'm going to turn to Mr. Watson. As I understand it, there was some funding obtained to carry out this navel gazing exercise. That's not using pejorative language in any shape or form. And IFTI is an employee, isn't it? So there's an officer of the council, Iftika Bakari, who was laid on it, but consultants, was it Hatch?
No, it's a different. I don't know the consultants of it.
Okay.
I've actually been involved in this.
There were some consultants. There's so many consultants that have been working for Pendle in the last year or two. You just get lost. But external consultants have been doing this master planning, of which there is a product, I am told, but I've not seen it, and I bet Mr. Watson has, but he's not saying it.
Is the name?
No, he hasn't seen it. Mr. Watson hasn't seen it. It honestly hasn't had any local input as far as I can see. You know, it's been a vacuous exercise somewhere in the ether.
They've asked me for another meeting.
Oh, they've asked Tom for a meeting.
Yeah, so I'll see where it's at.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Can we thank you very much for coming along? Tom's going to turn the camera off.
Can I talk to you next week?
Thank you.